everyone, my name is Natalie. Today I'm finally having an opportunity to film my Springathon recommendations. I've had a very busy month, so I've been thinking about these recommendations that I wanted to share with you based on the Springathon prompts this year. I also have another recommendations video coming up. As soon as I have time to film that one, I will put it up. And I also want to share my Springathon TBR. So those are coming in the next 2 weeks before the Springathon starts in May, on May 3rd. If you haven't already heard about this, I will leave a link to my announcement in the description and in the cards. The prompts this year are the seasons, so summer, spring, autumn, and winter. And I've decided on a couple of books for each of the seasons. These are things that in some ways they directly relate to a season, but for the most part it's more based on my association with certain things. So I'll start off with the summer picks. First we have Notes from an Island, written by Tove Jansson and illustrated by Tuulikki Pietele. And so this is a kind of a journal diary from the years that Tove Jansson and Tuulikki lived on an island in their I want to say it's retirement age. Around that time they lived for quite a few years on an island, and the journal kind of chronicles the building of the house on the island, the day-to-day storms and other weather that has a very direct impact on their lives based on the fact that the island setting and is very much affected by the climate and the weather. So living in a very close connection with nature and everything that is going on around you. This is something that I really love to read about. I love island settings, and another book that does this really well is Waterfalls of Stars by Roseanne Alexander. In particular because the island is part of Skärgården in Sweden, and the Skärgård setting is something I very much associate with the summer because the other seasons in Sweden can be quite cold. So this is the type of location that you only really, that most people only spend during the summer. And another book by Tove Jansson is called The Summer Book, is also set on an island in a similar location, and it is specifically focusing in on a family living on an island during the summer vacations. And so there's that association, I think, and that is the reason I'm thinking of this book in particular, suitable for the summer season. But in general, I just really love Tove Jansson's writing. I particularly like her nonfiction writing when she's just kind of reflecting on her own moods and ups and downs. Sometimes she's frustrated with the weather or with her creativity, with being very isolated, but it's also something they chose to live in this way. And so there's a lot of joy, a lot of comfort and serenity in being in this place as well. The illustrations are done by her partner, and they're also really beautiful. So would very much recommend, especially I think this would be a fantastic way to start reading Tove Jansson if you haven't already. But I would also recommend the summer book by her, that it would be a suitable option for this prompt. The next book recommendation I have for the summer prompt is The Draw of the Sea by Will Menmur. And like with islands, I associate anything sea, ocean, water related very much to the summer. This book is just so good, and I feel like it completely went under the radar. I haven't seen many people talk about this or read this. This is talking about different groups of people being drawn to the sea for different reasons. So it's talking about divers, talking about surfers, talking about mudlarking and other types of like beach combing, and people who fish, people who swim, just all of the different ways that you can interact with water as a human being. And I think the attraction that I feel towards water was just fueled by reading this book and seeing the multiple ways that people have been drawn to the sea. So if you feel that kind of pull towards any bodies of water, then I would definitely put this on your list. Very much an enjoyable read that also encapsulates a lot of people's passion, which is also, again, one of my favorite things to read in nonfiction. Very passionate people about a very particular thing. So there's this one. The last for the summer prompt that I have to recommend is Doghearted, Essays on Our Fears and Familiar Companions, and this is edited by Jessica J. Lee and Rowan Hisayo Buchanan. This is a collection of different writers writing about their relationship with their dogs. So my association with dogs in summer is just that I think of dogs as a very free and bubbly and energetic animal, and summer for me is kind of exactly that. So dogs kind of encapsulate what I associate with the season of summer. But also, of course, summer could mean longer walks because you are on vacation and therefore you're able to spend more time with your dog, that kind of thing. So make of that connection what you will, but this is a fantastic anthology. This has myriad, very different types of writers on this topic, but I think, again, this is, I've talked before about writers coming to life through certain topics, and one of those topics for me is swimming. I find that writers writing on swimming seems to bring out something very special, and I experienced something similar with reading this, with people reflecting on the role of a family member, of a friend, a companion in their lives. And if you are a dog lover, this is a fantastic book to pick up. This would be a perfect gift to get, and I guarantee you will find authors that you want to explore further through this collection. Really, really well edited and a fantastic book to have. And I am also really interested in this anthology series that also has a anthology that's called At the Pond, and also By the River, that is also nature related. So it might be something that is worth looking into for you as well. Next we have autumn. So my first recommendation is A Line in the World by Dorte Nors. This is the Swedish translation. It's a Danish author, and this one is a memoir. It's the author exploring the coast of Denmark through basically a road trip, and she is reflecting on various things on the landscape, in the memories that land carry, in the destruction of ecosystems, of land, there's a sense of loss running through this. There's a sense of melancholy, but also serenity and a calmness throughout this. Personal connection to the natural world. So many different things. But what I associate this with in terms of having it for the autumn prompt is that it really fits that transitional period from the summer to the autumn to me. There's a quiet, meditative, reflective tone in this, and that is very much how I'm thinking of autumn as a season, as a time of year when you start to spend more time indoors. It's getting colder and darker outside, and there's more time for thinking and reflecting and slowing down, and this book kind of captures that essence, that attitude, and I thought it was a beautiful book. There's a lot of particular thoughts and ways she explores different things, in particular to do with memory and loss, that I really loved, but also this essence of nostalgia for particular parts of nature, or particular places, geographical places. So this was a beautiful memoir. I think it would be perfect for autumn-inspired reading. Next, we have a book that is covering a topic that I most associate with autumn of any part of the natural world, and that is fungi. So this one is Truffle Hound, on the trail of the world's most seductive scent, with Dreamers, Schemers, and Some Extraordinary Dogs by Rowan Jacobson. Again, we have the dog theme. There is a lot of discussion on fungi in a broader sense and the very particular thing that truffles are. It's talking also about the eating and sort of the cuisine aspect of truffles, and about particular people seeking truffles out and what draws them to this search, and having that as a profession. Again, this is similar to Draw of the Sea in that it captures particular people who have very particular passions. This one I thought was just so much fun to read. If you're a fungi person and you've enjoyed books like Entangled Life, you would probably enjoy this one as well. If not for the fungi aspect, then maybe for the canine element of it, or just the fun human stories in this as well. Lastly, for my autumn books, we have A Short History of the World According to Sheep by Sally Coulthard. This book is talking about sheep. It's also talking about wool and the usage of wool, wool production, knitting. And for me, wool is very much something I associate with autumn. Obviously, knitting and the usage of wool is a year-long thing. I'm currently wearing a wool sweater. But I think in particular for me, when autumn rolls around, I am always so inspired and enthusiastic about knitting again. And that is the reason that this is my autumn pick. There's so many things that I think if you're a knitter or if you're a crafter, you would definitely get a lot out of this. It's talking about some of the technical aspects of wool that I found very, very helpful and enlightening. To understand the material itself. If you're interested in, again, kind of the human history of usage of wool and of relationship to sheep, because it's not only about the wool, although that is my personal favorite part of this book, then I think you would enjoy this. It's a really good book, and again, it's one that I feel like is underrated. So, A Short History of the World According to Sheep. First of the winter book recommendations is Feelings, A Story in Seasons by Manjit Tap. This is a graphic memoir, and this could definitely work for all of the seasons, given that it's talking about all of the seasons in this. But why I'm thinking of this as winter is because it's very much talking about seasonal depression. And for me, I have just been struggling with kind of a winter depression or winter slump, and I think it's something that a lot of us can relate to. Definitely one of the most beautiful graphic memoirs, graphic novels, or books in general that I've ever seen. The use of color in this is fantastic. The way she explores her emotions through illustrations is just so poignant and genuine that I was really blown away by this, and I want to own a copy. I don't at the moment, but I feel like this would be a particularly fantastic book to read for seasonal prompts, and in general, if you want to read something illustrated in this month, a quicker read, this would be a perfect pick. And in general, I just think that Manjit Tap is a fantastic illustrator. So there's that one. Next we have Wintering, A Season with Geese by Stephen Brutt. This book is about observing nature in winter. So I read this in the beginning of the pandemic, and so I think that is also something I associate with winter, and again the sense of being in pause, being very isolated, the quietness of every day melting into the other. And this again kind of has that feel to it, the way that he conveys the grayness of the weather and the sky, the trying to find things that break up the days. That is for me why one of the reasons I associate this book with winter, aside from the title and the overall topics. So this would be a fantastic pick. And another one that I wanted to recommend for winter is one of my favorite nature writing books ever, and that is The Great Soul of Siberia, In Search of the Elusive Siberian Tiger by Soo-Young Park. This book is written by a man who has studied the Siberian tiger for 20 years, and he spends half of the year in underground bunkers watching the Siberian tiger, and the other half of the year kind of on the move. And his observations are breathtaking in that they are both very specific in regard to the natural history of the Siberian tiger. There's also a lot of commentary on the effects of climate change, of human action, of poaching, and the resulting consequences in the Siberian tiger's behavior. I think this is a beautifully written book. It's informative. It is sharp in its critique, and it's one of the best books I've ever read, and I really want to reread this book, so if I have an opportunity I might this springathon. I always warmly recommend this book. I think it is one of a kind in its genre, and I hope more people will read it. So this would obviously fit well with the Siberian setting of a very snowy landscape for winter. Lastly, we have the spring prompt. So the first book of my spring recommendations is How Far the Light Reaches, A Life in 10 Sea Creatures by Sabrina Imbler. And I think my spring choices are all capturing a period of change or a transition period, a period of transformation. And for me, the spring is very much an encapsulation of those things, and therefore I chose books that are kind of focusing in on a very particular time in the author's life or centering around that transformation. This book is very much talking about transformation, both in the way that Sabrina Imbler thinks about themselves and kind of the way they frame themselves in their own understanding and their identity. It's talking about queer life, about exploring gay bars for the first time and that kind of thing, like discovering yourself. It's very much a coming of age memoir. I obviously love reading anything water related. This is focusing in on a lot of marine life, so there's that element of it, but it's also this queer coming of age story that those two things are two things I really love to read about. I think this is a fantastic memoir, and it's definitely one of the best books I read last year. Would recommend, and it would definitely suit the spring prompt. So the other two recommendations I have is basically two recommendations for authors. So we have The Enchanted Places by Christopher Milne. I also recommend his other memoir, Path Through the Trees. But the reason I wanted to recommend this in particular for the spring prompt is that writing Enchanted Places was for him kind of a turning point in his life in being able to tell his story. I've read a lot about A.A. Milne and about Christopher Robin and his legacy in his connection with the Winnie the Pooh stories, and he grew up with very complicated feelings about this, which is unsurprising. It's, I think, kind of a running theme with all children that grow up in some way connected to their parents' legacy. And so he had been struggling to come to terms with this relationship with Christopher Robin as a figure that had been haunting him for many years. And writing this book seems to have been kind of a something that freed him from all of the unsaid things and making getting a chance to put everything into words and to be heard from his point of view. It is a beautiful memoir. He does talk about his relationship with his dad. He talks about his relationship to Christopher Robin. He also talks about his own childhood and growing up as separate from those things. I just really love Christopher Milne's writing style in his memoirs, both this and Path Through the Trees. I strongly associate anything Milne related to the spring. I have a soft spot for the writing, both the father and the son, but I think not as many people have heard of Christopher Milne's memoirs, but they are fantastic and I would very much recommend. And then the last of my recommendations today is Jessica J. Lee. She has already published 2 memoirs. One is Turning, Lessons from Swimming Berlin's Lakes, and this one is about swimming in lakes, as the title suggests. And the other one is Two Trees Make a Forest, that is about her family legacy and family history in Taiwan in particular, and Taiwanese nature and the natural world and ecosystems there. Both memoirs are fantastic. This is the one I own. I don't own Two Trees Make Forest yet, but I've read it and really enjoyed both. And also she has a new book coming out that is coming out at the end of April. It's called Dispersals, and it's talking about different types of nature. I love her approach to nature writing. I think she marries a lot of different things like reflective and meditative writing, personal writing, and nature writing in a very particular and very poignant way that I've really found comforting to read, and that has really stuck with me in ways that that not a lot of books have. Would very warmly recommend both of her previous memoirs, and I am personally looking forward to Dispersals coming out. So those are all of the books I wanted to recommend for this Springathon 2024 book recommendations based on this year's prompts. Let me know if you read any of these books and what your thoughts were. Do you have any books that you're particularly interested in checking out from these books, or any other books that you are planning to read for the Springathon this year? I would love to know all about it. I hope you're having a fantastic April so far, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!